So we have been dealing with the first mantra, Urdhamulam Athasyakham Ashwatham Prakuravayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavi. So its roots are above, and below there are branches with buds, and entangled in these branches the entire human life, bound together by the bondage of actions. This is the picture. Now, the whole world is portrayed here as the scene, as the effect, changing every moment, never remaining the same for the next day. So changefulness is its nature. It is visible, but there is something above from which it originates. The source of its origination nobody knows. We know only the effect, we don't know the cause. And so long as we are bound to this samsara vriksha, I mean the tree, the papal tree of world, so long as we are bound to it by our actions, we are part of this cycle, the rotating cycle, which goes on moving, the cycle of life, death and rebirth. So these two slokas can be read together. So next verse, Athasyortham prasadas tasya shakhaha gunapravruddha vishaya pravalaha athasya mulani anusantatani karmanubandhini manushya. The translation will be something like this. Athasya urdhamcha means below and above. Below and above this roots, I mean above there is, of course, above the tree there is its root, its cause, which is unseen, which is the source of everything, but that we don't know, because so long as we are bound to actions, so long as we are entangled in the branches which spread out up and down, below and above, we can never understand its true nature. That's why below and above this tree spreads its branches. Shakhaha prasadahi means branches are spread. And for those branches are explained as guna pravruddha, means it is enriched or nourished by the three human temperaments, which call three gunas: sattva guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. These are the three gunas which, roughly speaking, tamo guna is symbolic of ignorance, delusion, lethargy, sleep, darkness and so on. Rajoguna is symbolic of action, dynamism, ambition, enthusiasm, but mixed with ignorance. But it is qualitatively it is higher than the first mentioned one, tamoguna, because tamoguna by its very nature is symbolic of sleep, spiritual sleep, intellectually also one is sleep, completely merged in ignorance. In Rajoguna there is some understanding, but that understanding is not correct. Somebody imbued with Rajoguna will be active, will be dynamic, not lethargic. But then he won't have an idea of the supreme reality. And Sattva is symbolic of light, knowledge, equanimity of mind, serenity, inner calmness and so on. These are the three gunas. Now all the human beings are in varying degrees imbued with these gunas. In fact, in every human being, these three gunas are present. So one's character is judged to be good or bad, or between these two levels, on the basis of the predominance of one of these three gunas, one of these three attributes. When a man becomes completely imbued with Sattva guna, he is only just an inch below supreme devotion or supreme knowledge. But this is very difficult to reach, because life itself consists of these three gunas, and they are always fluctuating, changing, and they go on changing their balance. So now the second verse says, these branches are nourished, enriched by these three gunas. That's how human beings work, tempted or prompted by the domination of any of these gunas. And then in these branches there are buds. Pravala means buds. And what are these buds? Objects of sensual pleasure. Different objects of sensual pleasure. Sense objects are the buds. So man gets attracted towards sense objects, and depending upon the domination of the gunas, he is attracted towards different objects. And we have to remember one point: one can never completely exist at the domain of Sattva guna, except at the highest level of spiritual realization, because any activity involves a small element of Rajoguna. So any kind of action is related to Rajoguna. So entangled in these branches which spread below and above, on this tree there are buds, and these buds are sense objects, and human beings are entangled in these branches. How do human beings get entangled in these branches, and how do they get attracted or deluded by sense objects? It depends upon their temperaments, because of their actions in this life or previous births, they have accumulated a treasure house of tendencies and impressions. We remember, in fact, we are able to relive previous experiences, and we get we can enjoy them, we can re-experience them, we can relive previous experiences if they are related to this life with name and form. See, if you try to remember something that happened to you when you were very young, small incidents when you were playing or just studying schools and all, actually. If you remember them, you always remember those events with name and form. If you remember, see how you traveled to Europe some 30-40 years back, at the moment you are able to remember, at least some memory comes down, memory of the plane you took, and also the route you took, and so on. The persons with whom you traveled, so name and form, and you may sometimes remember the persons also, depending upon the intensity of registration of memory. That's the idea. Now, how do we talk about memories or events related to previous life? So Vedanta says previous life memories are remembered without name and form, only as ideas, only as strong tendencies. If a person has got a strong tendency, either in the form of strong attachment or aversion towards something, which cannot be explained in terms of his life experiences in this life. Then Vedanta will try to explain it in terms of previous life experiences. Because the gross forms of senses of perception and senses of action have vanished with the previous life body. So only the subtle memories in the form of ideas are retained as a residue in what we call the Sukshma Sharira or subtle body. That's why, which in some of sacred books called Anusudha Subhava, sometimes called. Prakriti Subhava means both are the same. Anusudha means, certain human tendencies and vasanas which prompt you to act and behave in a particular manner, which won't allow you, permit you to behave differently. So these tendencies are legacy of previous life experiences. But you can't associate these tendencies with any name or any form. But memories associated with this life, depending on the intensity of the registration in the memory system, which we call Chittam, technically, we are able to relate with name and form. So what really happens is, Athascha Moolani Anusantathani. Now, Karmanu Bendhini Manushaloki. Manushaloki means in this human world, in this world of empirical existence, the roots, there is not the main root. The main root is Urdhvamulam, the real Brahman itself, that we call the central root from which the whole tree originates. But there are other minor roots which are visible on the surface, or which look like roots. They spread in all directions, and they are related to the branches, and branches are full of buds, and towards buds are sense objects, and the branches are the extension of the tree into the visible world. And human beings are entangled on these branches, and they get attracted towards these sense objects. And depending upon the tendencies that a person has accumulated, he acts, he behaves. And this action again produces fresh tendencies and fresh impressions, because every action, every deliberate action, means every action which is not performed with total selflessness. Any action which is related to some kind of attachment or selfishness, or the feeling that I am the one who is doing this work, which is kartrutvam is going on, the agentship. Any such action, even minor action, will produce a tendency, and that tendency will remain within the memory system. And that memory system, in this way, that memory system gets enriched. A lot of tendencies and impressions are accumulated, and they constitute the human character. So these accumulated impressions and tendencies constitute the human character, and human character again, according to the tendencies, is involved in fresh actions, and these fresh actions bring fresh tendencies, and the whole this bag of impressions and tendencies go on accumulating. So this is, and along with this there are three elements: avidya, kama and karma. Avidya means because we are not ignorant of the reality of the origin of this tree of world, which is Brahman, which is beyond all this. We are not aware of, we are ignorant. So we get attached to these branches, these buds, actions and all that. So we go on accumulating tendencies and impressions, and we go on acting and behaving according to the character, nature of these accumulated tendencies and impressions. This cycle moves on. This is called samsara vriksha, the tree of worldly existence, cyclic existence. So long as we are entangled in this cycle, there is no way out. So you can read in Swamiji's Karma Yoga lectures, Swamiji speculates, are human beings just like helpless boats, tiny boats tossed over in the mighty waves of karma, tendencies and vasanas? Or can man come out of this? In the context of 15th chapter, can man ever understand the source of the samsara, the source of this worldly cyclic existence? The 15th chapter says it is possible. So that's why asanga shastrena dridhena chittva. It is possible for one to get out of this cycle, to break the chains that bind us. Chains are always chains. Even good tendencies are also chains. In fact, that is one great distinction between Vedanta and non-Vedantic religious or spiritual philosophical systems. In Vedantic system, you are asked to go beyond not only hell but also beyond heaven. So golden chain is also a chain. Accumulated virtues, accumulated what we call punyas. You go on accumulating good results. True. But that is also bondage. Then you have to go to heaven, you have to enjoy all these things, and then we become bankrupt. After drawing the checks again and again, the deposit is exhausted, we become bankrupt. And again we are forced to be born in this world. And again we continue actions. And we are not very sure that we will accumulate only good results. So one is advised, a spiritual aspirant, a spiritual seeker is advised to go beyond not only the bad but also the good. The good also accumulated, the good impressions accumulated through selfish action is also a bondage. It's like it binds you, maybe it binds you with a golden chain, that's all, a diamond chain, but still is a bondage. You cannot move an inch. So that's why in the Gita, in the earlier sloka, in the earlier chapters, there are some verses, people who do a lot of good things, the result of their good actions will not be completely lost. Those who do a lot of virtuous deeds, maybe with desire, they accumulate good things, and after death they enjoy the good results of their good actions. And their good deeds do not go waste, do not become in vain. So they go to the higher world and they stay there for some time, and then, they are born back in this world. So the Gita discusses this subject. What happens to a spiritual aspirant who dies, who passes away before he gets full spiritual illumination? Whatever good deeds he has done will remain. He will go to a higher world, he will enjoy, but then he is born in the families of virtuous and prosperous people. People who have been enjoying worldly desires in this life and also doing very good deeds, philanthropical activities, helping the poor people, helping spiritual or non-profit religious or spiritual organizations doing unselfish work. But then they have not fully gone beyond desire. They have still some desires left. They have not reached the highest realization. And they die. What happens? So Gita says, such people, after their death, they enjoy the results of their good deeds in a higher world, and they are reborn in the houses of spiritual aspirants. Not realized people, but spiritual. Those who have got their parents will have a spiritual orientation, or they will themselves, their spiritual orientation may manifest at one point of time, in their life. That's why Prape Punyakridam Lokan Ushitva Shashwati Samaha Shuchinam Simadam Geke Yoga Bhrashto Bhijayade. 2 points I have to remember, They are Yoga Bhrashta, they have deviated. They have deviated from the path of yoga. The meaning is they die, they pass away. They have passed away before they have realized the Supreme Goal. So it's called Yoga Bhrashta. Now what happens? After enjoying the results of their good deeds, they are reborn in the houses of prosperous people. Srimad means prosperous people, because they have not fully exhausted their desires. Still some desires are accumulated. So they are born in the families of people with some spiritual aspiration, or they get associated with some spiritual people, and they are able to exhaust whatever desires are left out, and they are reborn. Now what about those who are of a still higher order, great spiritual aspirants who have done so much of great spiritual practices? They have no desire. They have gone even beyond the spiritual status of the aspirant we have already explained. What happens? They are also reborn, but they are reborn in the houses of yogis, great spiritual aspirants. But that is very rare. So say, Athava yogina meva kule bhavati dhimadam edadhi durlabhadaram loke janma yadidrisam. The sixth chapter you find, 41st and 42nd verses. So these two types of spiritual aspirants who are trying to break the bondage, the chains which bind to them in the samsara. The one group, their desires are not fully fulfilled, there are still some desires are left, but they have done a lot of good deeds. They enjoy the results of their virtuous deeds in the higher world, and they are reborn in the families of people who have enough resources to enable them to enjoy further, so that they can exhaust their desires. They can go beyond, so that condition is properly set by the Lord. And those who are of a still higher type have absolutely no desire at all. They are born in the families of great spiritual personalities, means spiritual aspirants, not necessarily realized people, but great spiritual aspirants, spiritual seekers, where they may not have the material prosperity because they don't need that. They have already gone beyond that. In this way, Gita says, every effort to break the chains which bind you to this worldly cyclic existence is valid and is fruitful, if not in this life, in the next life. That's why the first verse says, Chandamsi yasya parnani yastam veda sa vedavid. Chandamsi here actually means Veda. Parnani means leaves. Because Vedas, technically, that is related to the Indian philosophical tradition. Vedas um, instruct you how to perform various religious, spiritual duties and responsibilities. So that is why in the technical sense, in the traditional sense, Vedas are here described as the source or origin of all human actions. Now, those who know the true nature of this worldly cyclic existence, they know the true meaning of Veda. Veda here means knowledge. They know the supreme truth. You find such imageries related to tree are very common in the Vedic literature. In the Munduga Upanishad, there is a famous imagery that comes in the it belongs to Atharva Veda, but that mantra comes in the form of a Samhita mantra in the Rigveda Samhita itself, though the Upanishad in which this appears later belongs to Atharva Veda tradition. Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishassu Ajade Tayoranya Pipalam Swadatti Anasnan Anyo Apichakasidi. This is the mantra. So a tree is portrayed here with two branches, one branch above, the other below. There is a bird sitting on the branch above. It is sitting quiet. It is not bothered by what is happening around. But there is another bird sitting below. And that bird is eating fruits, all kinds of fruits. When it eats sweet fruits, it enjoys. When it eats sour fruits, then it becomes sad. Now the second bird is the symbol of human experience, because man can never stick to enjoyment alone. If he wants enjoyment, he should be ready to suffer as well. That's the nature of this worldly existence. So if you want to avoid the pain of eating sour fruits, you should stop eating altogether. Because if you want to go beyond pain, you should stop seeking pleasure. That is why in Shankaracharya's commentary you find, he says, that bird which is sitting on the branch above is symbolic of Ishvara. It's not, because it has understood the true nature of this world. It knows that you cannot judge that one particular fruit will be sour or sweet without eating. And eating involves not only enjoying but also suffering. And that's part of this world. And that is the effect, that's like that part of the iceberg which is seen above. But there is a huge iceberg which is below the water level. So the only way to avoid the problem, the pain of suffering, is to stop seeking enjoyment. So the bird which is sitting above, it doesn't eat anything. It keeps quiet. It always enjoys its communion with God, with the Supreme Brahman, because it has broken the bondage, it has broken the chains which binds it to the world. Now that is the description. Adaschotham prasadas tasya shakha gunapravruddhaha vishaya pravala atascha mulani anusantadani karmani benthini manushiloke. So karma, action is the chain that binds you to this world. Good action binds you to the world with a golden chain. Bad action binds you with an iron chain. Makes no difference. Now, there is a further description, because we don't have enough time. Today maybe less than half an hour more, and tomorrow another hour. So we won't be able to complete this 15th chapter. So I shall, of course, tomorrow I will continue. But before that, I would like to give a just a general idea of what this chapter, 15th chapter, deals with. So we have already seen the first, second, and third verses deals with this cyclic existence, this world which is compared to a mystic people tree, to which we are bound by our actions. And from 4th to 15th verses, the transcendence and imminence of the Supreme Reality is graphically explained. Not only transcendence, it goes beyond everything, but also the imminence. For example, light of the sun or that the principle which keeps the entire cosmos in its balance, the gravitation, the galaxies. There is an inherent principle which keeps the entire cosmic existence in its balance. And there is also sequence, there is also harmony, and there is also an inherent regulating principle. This is the immanent. This shows the immanence of the Supreme Reality. So sometimes, fertility of soil, the digestive power of living beings, and Supreme Consciousness that is present in all living beings, with the source of life, memory, knowledge, everything. It is this Supreme Consciousness as the indweller, what is called Antaryami, with the immanent reality, which keeps all these beings together. This immanence, this is a very important principle in the Upanishad literature. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a long discourse between Yajnavalkya, the great teacher, the great sage and teacher, and Gargi, an equally great philosopher, woman philosopher. So there Yajnavalkya says, everything in this world, Yem Prithivyam Dishtan Prithivyam Mantraha Yem Prithivī Veda Yasya Prithivi Shariram Yem Prithivyam Mantaro Emayeti Eshatayantadhyami Amrita. Like that goes on. Yajnavalkya takes the example of earth, water, light, vital energy, everything that you can think of, and says that Atman, the Supreme Reality, is the indwelling spirit in all these beings. Living as the indweller in all beings in this world, it controls and regulates and enlivens the entire creation. In a very logical way, Shankaracharya establishes this point. The Antaryami aspect, what is called the immanent aspect of the Supreme Reality. So if you say, well, God is present on earth, suddenly anyone can, well, this is pantheism. In pantheism, you equate nature with God. Nature and God are the same. A little bit of this you can find in Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, and in the transcendental thinkers. You can find a flash of this pantheistic thought currents. Now, but then Vedanta says that the Supreme Reality is not a pantheistic principle. So it says it is not, because if you say this reality exists on earth, then one can say the trees, mountains, valleys, rivers, all these are gods. No. So it says, it is the thing, all these natural phenomena. But that's not enough, because within these natural phenomena there are many subtle things which may not be visible, which may not appear to be gross. Prithvi Deva in the Upanishadic language. So it says, no, it is not so. Then it says, this individual reality is not only exists on earth, and it not only exists within all the living beings, within all cosmic phenomena like earth, sun, etc. But it also has got all the cosmic phenomena, the entire cosmic phenomena, as its vehicle, as its mode of expression, as its medium of expression. The entire cosmic phenomena is the medium through which that divine reality manifests, reveals. So the entire cosmic phenomena is nothing but a medium through which it manifests. But the cosmic phenomena itself doesn't know this reality. Like that, Upanishad mantra gives a graphic description to show the true nature of Brahman as the immanent reality present in all cosmic phenomena. The entire cosmic phenomena is nothing but a vehicle, an instrument, a medium through which that immanent reality expresses itself. And transcendence, that's already explained. Then, from 16th verse to 20th verse, and 20th verse is the last one, there is a famous, and that is a very important part of this famous verse, that is a very important part of this chapter. Dvavimu purusho loge ksharaschaksharevaja kshara sarvani bhudani kudasthokshara uchyade uttama purushastu anneha paramatma iti udakritaka yo lokatrayam avishya vibharti avyaya isharaha. It's a description of the supreme reality as a triad, means threefold being, the supreme reality. The supreme reality manifests in three dimensions. One, entire cosmic phenomena, that is also it's not distinct from the supreme reality. Because if you say that God creates this world and then stands outside the creation, you have to admit duality. You have to admit that there is an entity which is other than Brahman, other than God. So it will not be non-dualism. So creation is explained, and ultimately the creation is explained as non-distinct and non-different from the Creator. But then how do you explain this visible natural phenomena? They are changing every moment. A new flower is coming on the plant, a new fruit is coming every minute, a new cell is being produced. Cells are being destroyed and also produced. So how can you say this changing world is Brahman itself? And if you say this changing world is something other than Brahman, then you have to admit Brahman on the one hand, also this changing world another. So there will be two entities, it will not be monism. So this chapter says these cosmic phenomena which are changing by nature is the supreme reality in its changing form. It's called Kshara Sarvani Bhudani. Kshara means Kshara Purusha. Kshara means Kshara means changing, getting destroyed. Changing. Every moment it is changing. But that changing phenomena are not eternal. They are coming because behind this change there is a changeless reality. And that is described later as Purushottama. So this so-called changing phenomena is part of the changeless reality. The Purushottama is the changeless supreme reality, and the changing natural phenomena is only part of it. Then second is the witness consciousness, Jiva, this is Akshara Purusha. So you find Do imo Purusho Loki, Ksharascha Aksharevacha, Kshara Sarvani Bhutani. So there are two Purushas mentioned here in this verse. Kshara Purusha, Kshara means perishable, the entire cosmic phenomena, which goes on changing every minute, every second. But within these changing phenomena, there is a changeless, immanent witness consciousness. That is the witness consciousness dimension of the supreme reality. It is called Jiva, all the living beings. So Kudastha Akshara Uchit. It is imperishable. So human body comes and goes. But within the human body there is something which doesn't come and doesn't go. Because it always was there, so you cannot come. If you are present here all the time, you cannot come. And if you are present here all the time, you cannot go also. So Gita you find, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhiraha tatranamuhi. In second chapter, maybe 13th verse you find. In this body, which undergoes changes, which is born, first becomes a baby, then a child, then a boy, young man, middle age, then old man, and dies, and then reborn. Of course, it goes, of course. It's not reborn. Body is not reborn. But then, there is something in this body, which neither goes nor comes. And there is Atman. That Atman adopts another instrument for its manifestation. It is a witness consciousness. So it is called Akshara Purusha, means it is imperishable. And then there is the Purushottama, which is portrayed as Brahman Atman itself. It is present in all these. In the perishable natural phenomena also, it is present. Somebody can ask the question. See this mic, well, when you think of this mic, this public address system which is made of steel, it may have come into existence 1 year back. Well, about maybe 10 years back, it was in the form of an iron ore perhaps, lying underneath the earth, hundreds of thousands of feet below. It may have remained there for a long time. And again, if you go further backward, it must have been in another form before it took the form of iron ore. Because iron ore is formed as a result of years and centuries of changes taking place in that matter. But there is something which makes it possible for this entity to undergo these changes. Because change always implies a changeless substratum. You can never think of change without the idea of changelessness. So you can never think of the relative without the idea of the absolute. So the Vedantic philosophy says, behind and within all the living beings in this world, there is a witness consciousness. It never changes. The external form changes. And when form changes, name also changes. Nama Rupa as we call it. Now what is the supreme reality? Purushottama. Uttama Purushastu Anyaha Paramatma iti udakrita. Yo lokatrayam avishya bibharti avyaya ishara. And this Uttam Purushottama, the Supreme Person, he is the transcendental reality. This transcendental aspects. The transcendental reality has its immanent dimension also. That is akshaya. So, but then this transcendental reality, it pervades all the other two dimensions as well. This is the, of course we don't have time to go very elaborately. This is being explained from 16th to 20th verse. And this is the central point. Very often these slokas are interpreted according to Ramanuja's system. For Ramanuja this is very important. This Antaryami Brahmana is very important, and this is also very important for the qualified non-dualistic philosophers. But according to Advaitic tradition, this Purushottama is equated with the absolute reality, Brahman itself. And then this first mantra says, anyone who knows the true nature of this world is the knower of Brahman. He knows the true knowledge. Because it is stated, Veda itself says, Yo jagaratam bruja kamayante. Yo jagaratamu samani yanti. The idea is this, Vedas come to you if you are awake. Veda comes to you if you are awake and teaches you, reveals the truth to you. Means if one is open, awake to spiritual truths, Vedas themselves reveal the supreme truth and he becomes a Vedavit. Now we will come to the second mantra. Second mantra we completed. Third mantra. न रूपमस्येक तथोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चाद्यं न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा अश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण दृढेन चित्वा. Yes, the third and fourth verse. Enam ashwatham suviruddhamulam. See, these three which got very strong roots. See, the verse says, Narupam asyeka tathopalabhyade. Its form, the form of this empirical existence, the cyclic existence, this world, is not perceived here. And its end also is not perceived. And its origin also is not perceived. And its existence also is not perceived. How do you understand the true nature of the world? The true nature of the world is, it is world, that it is perishable, it is changing. It doesn't last for long. But this is realized only by one who goes beyond world. See, if you are within world, you are not able to understand that it is relative. If anyone who lives this world, in the sense anyone who thinks this world as an end in itself, cannot realize that this world is relative. For him, this world is absolute. For an ignorant man, Brahma Mithya Jagat Satyam. For an enlightened man, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. So when you come to an enlightenment, the status of an enlightened man, you realize this world is relative. And when you realize this world is relative, you also realize that there is something beyond this world which is not relative. Because relativity can be perceived only if you realize that there is something which is not relative, it is absolute. Change, as I said earlier, is perceived only in relation to changelessness. So, that's why for those who are living in this world, they are not able to understand this world. They are not able to understand the root, the final cause, the origin of this world. The origin of this world is Brahman itself. The world is nothing but the interpretation of Brahman in the language of time, space and causation. You have to come out of the entanglement of time, space and causation. Then you understand the world is only relative. There is something beyond that. How this is possible? This is possible only by cutting asunder, by cutting the chains that bind you to this world. Because you have to cut down, it means you have to break the chains, and breaking these chains that binds you to the world is like cutting asunder, cutting down the tree itself. And this is possible only through detachment. So, Avishuddhamenam Suvirudha Asanga Shastrayana, the weapon that you use to cut down this tree of worldly existence is the weapon of detachment. Because attachment is the cause of our being caught by the attraction of the buds which are sense objects. Guna pravruddha vishaya pravalaha. These branches are spread out up and down, and man is entangled on these branches, and is attracted by the buds that grow on these branches in this world. These buds are sense objects. He said yesterday we described Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sankasteshu Upajayate. So man goes on thinking of external objects, sense objects. Slowly he gets attached to that. And then we already explained yesterday how Sangha Sanjayate Kamaha, Kama Krotho Vijayate, Krotha Dhavati Sammoha, Sammoha Smriti Vibhramaha, Smriti Bhramsha Buddhinashu, Buddhinasa Pranashiri. So you think of sense objects, we think of sense objects, and then we get attached to them, then we want to acquire them, we don't always succeed. Because of desire, we strive our best to acquire them. And when we don't succeed, we become angry. And then from this anger grows delusion, and delusion leads to loss of memory. Loss of memory means we forget our true nature, and then we remain entangled to these branches of worldly existence, never even making an effort to cut the chains that bind us to this people tree of worldly existence. So the first step, and that also is the last step, is detachment. You cannot physically go away from this world. Very often, Vedanta is very unfortunately interpreted as a philosophy of flight from the world of realities. Vedanta is actually a philosophy that enables you to plunge deeply and intelligently into this world. As Sri Ramakrishna makes this very simple in his own homely language, those who want to cut this jackfruit tree, your fingers will be, with that sticky, it be stuck to your fingers. So you put some oil on the finger, then you cut this tree. So non-attachment or asanga, non-attachment is the oil that you apply on the fingers before cutting this jackfruit tree. In the Gospel, if you read in a simple way, Sri Ramakrishna puts this idea. In the traditional scriptures, you find Padma Patram Ivam Phasa. Padma Patra means lotus leaf, the flowers. Lotus leaf, they live on water, on lakes, but they are never affected, they don't get wet by the water. They ever remain free from water. Like that, if we can develop detachment, complete dispassion and detachment to world, then we can cut asunder this tree of worldly existence. So it is a mental effort, a spiritual effort that is required. So that's why Lord Krishna says, you see, you can never understand its beginning or end. The world, when it evolved, world here, you should be not the physical world. This phenomenon of being caught in this cycle of life and death. That's what is meant by world here. It has neither beginning nor end. Within itself, so long as you are caught in the world, there is no beginning, there is no end. But where the moment you start resorting to detachment, it comes to an end. That's why, in fact, Maya and Avidya, these two terms are related to worldly existence. Avidya means na vidyate iti avidya, something which really doesn't exist. Now, something which doesn't exist at all, you don't say that it really doesn't exist. When you say, well, there are 20 people here, 25, 50 people here. You can say we are only 50, we don't have 55 people, 50 say. There is a possibility of 55 people being present hypothetically. But actually we say only 50 people. So people sometimes mistake this relative world to be real. That's why I said this relative world is actually unreal. Something which is totally unreal, which you cannot even intellectually conceive of, we don't deny it. Something which we cannot even intellectually conceive of, even hypothetically conceive of, we don't deny, and we cannot assert also. We can neither affirm nor deny. But people living in this world sometimes think this world is eternal. Those who have no spiritual aspiration. So to those people, Vedanta tells this world is avidya. In reality, it doesn't exist. So, but then this is realized only when you come out of this world. Till then, by reading Gita, by listening to scriptures, we slowly cultivate that spiritual culture within, and we ultimately come to the conclusion, intellectually at least, that this world is not eternal, there is something beyond this. And then slowly we try to develop this asanga, means detachment. And when detachment becomes perfect, then the world ceases to exist. The world is no more world. We understand that the world is something which we mistook to be real, but in reality, not real. So that's why one can come out of this cycle of worldly existence only by being detached to this world. And then we can live in this world without being caught by this trap. That is the idea behind, and we'll continue. We already taken enough time. If there is any discussion, we'll explain more clearly. Any questions? Okay.
Would you please explain a little bit more the master Vidya Maya and Avidya?
Oh yes. Now, Vidya Maya and Avidya. Vidya Maya is that which convinces you, which strongly convinces you that there is something beyond this world of avidya. It takes you near the supreme truth. It removes the misconceptions. Just like the light is, Vidya Maya is like the light that you bring. The allegory, that we already used that example of rope and snake. You have got 4 wrong notions, that this rope is a snake or stick or a piece of or a thin stream of water or a crack on the floor. These are the 4 wrong ideas that you have formed because you don't know it is the rope in the dimly lit room. When you bring light, all these are removed. So Vidya Maya is like the light which removes the darkness, which was the obstacle that stood in the way of your understanding that it is piece of rope.
Still it is Maya.
Still it is Maya, because light is in no way related to the rope. Light has no connection with the rope. We can't say it was light which produces the rope. No. Light only removes the darkness which stood in your way of understanding that it is piece of rope. So Vidyamaya ile Shastram. There's a famous statement in Shankara's commentary. Shastram ajnana nivartakam na jnana pravartakam. The idea is scriptures are like Vidyamaya, light. They don't produce jnanam because jnanam or knowledge is not something which is produced by anything. Anything which is produced is an effect, and that cannot be eternal. Even anything which comes into existence is non-eternal, anitya. Anything that comes, because it did not exist before it came into existence, and anything which comes into existence will cease to exist, will vanish. So the idea is this. In fact, the fact that it is rope doesn't depend upon your bringing light. Even if you don't bring light, it will be rope only. You didn't understand it is rope. For that, light was necessary. There also, light did not reveal rope. Light removed darkness. Subtle, intricate point is there in dialectical meaning. Light did not reveal rope. What did the light do? Light removed darkness. So avidya removes, Vidyamaya removes avidyamaya. Vidyamaya doesn't produce jnana, but it helps you. That's in Vedanta it's a technical point from the philosophical point of view. I think it's clear. Okay.
Say that Vidyamaya is the light that makes you understand that this nature world is not real. That is something real. Now, through all your spiritual practices, when you know the reality, the God, that is like knowing the true nature of the rope now, right?
Yes. That's true.
When I see it's a rope, but I really don't know much about the rope. Please,
no, you are not able to see that it is rope. You see it's something else.
But then knowing more about the rope,
yes,
in terms of the world,
yes,
in sciences,
yes,
that's going into the chemistry and physics of the rope.
Right.
Then analogous to that is with lot of experiment, with lot of spiritual experiment.
True.
As you find out the nature of the rope, physical nature from our
That's
point of view. But for a spiritual point of view, thinking by Jnana Yoga or Buddhi Yoga or whatever yoga, when you really realize what the rope really is, then that is illumination.
Yeah. In every spiritual effort.
Vidyamaya, before realization.
Yeah, I will make one point rejoinder. Every spiritual sadhana, spiritual effort, whether listening to scriptures, reading scriptures or meditation, all days, they all remove the wrong impressions and tendencies which are accumulated, and then they strengthen the Vidyamaya. And when Vidyamaya gets strengthened, then it is just another step towards understanding the reality. When light is brought, then it is just a matter of your opening your eyes to realize that is wrong. That is the real fact. So all human efforts, all the scriptures are only attempts to explain the inexplicable. So Vedantic texts always assert that Upanishads and Vedantic texts cannot explain Brahman. No. All our efforts, all our listening should not be shocked by hearing this, because the reality that you are the Atman itself is not the product of your listening, your meditation, etc. But your listening and meditation helps you to remove the wrong notions that we have accumulated as to what we are. And when wrong notions are removed, then the right reality doesn't require anything else to reveal it. When light is brought, then you have got rid of the wrong notions that it is a piece of wood and so on and all that. Then what exactly it is self-evident. So that is why in the Vedantic tradition, all the epistemological truths, perception, inference, comparison, presumption, and verbal testimony, and non-cognition is called. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Umana, Shabda, Arthavatya, Anupalapti, all the 6 pramanas. These pramanas do not reveal the reality. But these pramanas remove all the wrong notions that we have with regard to what we are. Because the reality is not an object of knowledge or knowing. The reality is Swayam Prakasha. This is Advaitic interpretation. If from a bhakta standpoint, we can say, when you surrender yourself to God's grace, then what happens? Then God Himself reveals the supreme truth to you. This is from the devotional, a bit of standpoint of devotional philosophy. But from the Vedantic point of view, both are really the same at the experience level. But methodology is different. From the Vedantic point of view, the reality is called Sarva Pramana Avadhi, means it goes beyond all epistemological tools of perception, inference, comparison, verbal testimony, presumption, and non-cognition. All deep. It is not something which is revealed by any of the tools of epistemology. This is the idea behind.
Maharaj, in higher mathematics, this has a parallel. I mean, there are many theories called existence theories, which proves that something exists, but it cannot go beyond that. It cannot. This kind of this exists or does not exist. This exists, they prove, but they cannot give the equation.
Yeah.
They just.
In Kantian thought, in German idealism, according to him, thing in itself is unknown and unknowable. Vedanta says it is unknown to the senses and the mind and all these empirical tools of cognition. It is unknown and it is unknowable, but it is deeply felt as our own inner immanent reality. Because Kant couldn't go to that extent. Kant had to stop. It is unknown and unknowable. He had a glimpse of the transcendental, but he could not say, as the Upanishad says, it is felt as our own inner life. Yet sakshat aparokshat brahma. You find Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Yajnavalkya teaches. This reality is aparoksha. Aparoksha, if you, from the language point of view, aparoksha means not paroksha, but it is pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means obvious, perceptible. Aparoksha means remote. So Vedanta philosophers say it is not remote and it is not perceptible. Then what is it? It is our own inner self. Our own inner self doesn't become an object of our own knowledge. See, suppose you have got the wrong notion that you are somebody other than you. And then once you remove all those wrong notions, then you will realize, well, what I am. That you cannot explain. It is a self. So the reality is realized as one's own immanent inner truth, which can be understood only at the experience level, not at the experiment level or at the investigation level. It can be only experienced, that is sakshat aparokshat. It is not remote because it is our own inner essence, our immanent truth. At the same time, it cannot be objectified We cannot realize, we cannot understand Brahman as we understand this glass or this book with our eyes and mind. So it is not perceptible. And what is not perceptible may be remote. It is not remote because it is our own inner essence. That is the way Vedantic texts speak. So if there are no further discussion, we can conclude here.
Time, space and possession.
Yeah.
That brings world comes into existence. So what is this possession for human being? Is it our even karma that is the possession?
Yeah.
But what is the possession of this?
Yes. No. When we look upon the world, we cannot think except in terms of time, space, and also somebody or something who is the cause of this world. At the empirical plane, I cannot think of this book without somebody who wrote this book, or somebody who bound this book, or printed this book. You cannot disassociate the effect from a cause. So, but in reality, at the highest transcendental level, that reality is not the cause of anything, and it's not the effect of anything. If you say it is the cause, then you have to admit it changes. If you say it is the effect, you have to admit that it also contradicts, it also changes. So that reality is neither cause nor the effect. So in Vedanta, I tell you, in Vedanta, this is called Vivartavada, the theory of apparent transformation, as opposed to the theory of real transformation, according to Ramanujan philosophy. So, the Brahman appears to have become this world, or rather, the clay appears to have become this pot and pans. Really. I explained this yesterday. On the one side you have heap of clay, on the other side you have pots and pans made of the same type of clay. You can approach it from two angles. You can say that the clay has become the pot, which is called Parinamavada, means the theory of transformation. Or you can say this pot appears to have become, the clay appears to have become these pots and pans. I know this is a bit difficult to understand. How do we say it is only an apparent transformation, not real transformation? If somebody says the clay has become the pot and pans, it is obvious, anyone can understand. Just as, in real transformation, the milk has become yogurt, whatever it is. But according to Advaitins, according to Vedantins, the clay has not become the pots and pans. Really. Apparently only it has become, not really. You know why? Before the pot maker made these pots and pans, it was clay. And after breaking it, it will go back to the status of clay. Now when it stands in front of you as pots and pans, do you think it is something other than clay? It is nothing but clay plus the shape of that form of pots and pans. And when form comes, you give a different name. You don't say I am drinking water in a clay. You say I am drinking water in a pot or a glass, whatever it is. So name and form are superimposed, are added to clay. And names and forms vanish. You break it, name vanishes. You don't call it pot anymore. And it doesn't have the form of pot. It goes back to clay. So, the name and form are only temporary. They are not real. And in fact, even when pots and pans sit in front of you on a table, then also it is clay only. As I said yesterday, you must remember, when you go to a goldsmith with golden ornaments, he will judge your golden ornaments on the basis of the quality of gold out of which it is made. Names and all these are matters of interest only for the one who wears it. We cannot wear a golden biscuit or golden form. It should take the form of a round form, and then you call it a name and all. So as goldsmith is concerned, it is only gold. So what about the name and form? They are not real. So in fact, clay has become pots and pans only apparently. It is only apparent transformation. Sometimes called transfiguration. It is called Vivartavada. Technically means apparent change, not real change. So according to Vedantics, Brahman has become this world only apparently. It is only apparent transformation. You remove the association of this world with name and form, or that in other words time, space and causation, then is Brahman only. That's why from a Jivan Mukta's point of view, this world is Brahman. When Sri Ramakrishna went to Benares at some kind of transcendental stage, he saw the whole Benares in a spiritually effulgent form at the point of view. But then of course immediately coming down, he will walk, he will go to the temple and all that. So you just read Swamiji's first experience of Advaitic realization when Sri Ramakrishna touched him, then the room vanished, all objects around vanished, everything vanished and merged in a surging light. I felt it going beyond name and form. And again, of course, was brought down. So, there's a world minus name and form is Brahman only, consciousness only. In other words, Brahman looked upon through the prism of name and form is world, and world looked upon after removing this prism of the spectacles of name and form is Brahman. Surupadrishtya Brahma eva. That's the meaning of it. Can be anything.
Actually, Maharaj, time and space, reality, nothing is real.
Yes.
There's nothing called time, nothing called. This is all Maya.
Yes, in fact, time is only imagination.
Possession is also there is no
Yes,
possession.
it is like that like lines that draw on water surface. It exists only so long as you can think of it. When your eyes are focused. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. So I think we can conclude now. Okay.